Hey guys, Swamp Cleaner Harry here, back with another video for you. This one is going to be covering the whole Michael Flynn plead guilty to the FBI for lying, and how there is a complete disregard for the actual truth when it comes to what is happening in Europe and the videos that you can see coming out of there, and why people are more concerned about who is retweeting who than what the actual evidence is showing. So let's get started. Alright, so apparently, well, not apparently, Michael Flynn, the other day on Friday, pled guilty to lying to the FBI. Okay, well, that's old news. We've already known about that since February, since he was fired from the White House for lying to the Vice President and the FBI. But here is the skinny on that. They say this all has to do with a technicality. And they say that he lied to the FBI about his discussions with the Russian ambassador Kislyak, and particularly about sanctions. Now, the only way they could have gotten him over a barrel like this is by using that wiretap so they could listen in on his calls when he was, as the transition, during the transition, he was reaching out to all these other countries to get feelers out to see, hey, we're going to be coming into the office soon, we want to get the ball rolling on our interactions. The Obama administration is detransitioning, and we are transitioning in, and we want to touch base and get everything moving forward. Now, they caught him on a technicality because, to him, I can see how this is completely innocuous. It's pretty much, he lied by omitting a very simple fact, which to him was a nothing, because he was just doing his legal job by contacting all these countries, including Russia. They said that you talked to the Russian ambassador about sanctions and that you were undermining the sanctions Obama put in place on Russia for interfering with the election. When, in context, if you actually look at the transcript of the phone call, since conveniently he was wiretapped, you can see that it was the Russian ambassador who asked if they could talk about sanctions. And Flynn was like, well, we can, but that's going to have to be later. We're still transitioning, and we need to hammer out what's going on. But, yeah, we can talk about that at a later date. So, technically, yes, Flynn talked about sanctions, but not in the context, not in the way that the FBI has accused him of talking about it. And that's why he forgot to mention it when he was being questioned by the FBI several times, because in his mind, he was just doing his legal duty, and when they say you talked about sanctions, it's not like he was thinking, well, we were talking in detail, and yeah, I was going to confirm that we were going to get rid of these sanctions. No, it was literally a very simple, can we talk about sanctions, coming from the Russian ambassador, and then Flynn saying, well, it's going to have to be later, we're still transitioning, we got to figure that out. But since technically, yes, he talked about sanctions, they caught him on a half-truth, they caught him on a pretty much a very shaky perjury charge, and that pretty much amounts to nothing. Now, if they want to actually use Michael Flynn as a witness against Donald Trump, they've pretty much shot themselves in the foot, because a witness is supposed to be reliable, and if you've already had somebody who's convicted of lying, of perjury, then how can they be considered a credible witness? You know? So, this was old news. This has already been known for months that he lied, but it wasn't like he was trying to cover up something. He lied by omitting an innocuous fact, or an innocuous technicality. And this is where this is all coming from. Robert Mueller is doing this to pump up smoke, just like he did with Manafort and Papadopoulos last month. This is to pump up smoke so he can keep his investigation afloat. So then, what I heard from sources that are disseminating this information is that he's now going to use anything he gets from Flynn to lean on Jared Kushner and try to get Jared Kushner to turn on Trump. But that is going to be a much harder thing to do than what happened with Flynn, because they're family, and you don't get between family. But either way, Mueller has to show his cards soon, or this is going to be tantamount to the biggest witch hunt in pretty much American history. I'm assuming. I have to double check on that, but this has been a massive coordinated effort to drum up charges against Donald Trump, to either get him caught in a collusion story, or have this drag out long enough to where he fires Mueller or ends the investigation, and then they try to get him on obstruction of justice and then impeach him. So they're wiggling their way around, and they're going to try to get this done. All right, my next topic is going to be, now you guys all know that Donald Trump retweeted some videos coming out of Europe and the Middle East that shows Muslim atrocities in raw footage. There is nobody talking over. There's no narration. There's just raw footage coming straight out of Europe, and he retweeted Jada Frazen from the right-wing Britain First movement. Now, people are all up in arms about him retweeting her because of what she stands for, and they completely omit the fact of the videos themselves, the evidence that's in the videos themselves. Yes, one video which shows a boy attacking another boy on crutches is falsely reported that it's a Muslim migrant attacking a Dutch boy when it's actually another Dutch boy. But the bigger issue is, how come we're getting to the point that we have all these videos coming out of Europe and coming out of the Middle East that shows situations like this happening, where we can now easily get confused between what is real and what is fake. So that means there is a problem because of the sheer amount of video evidence that is coming out, and you can actually make it very easy just to take a false claim of Muslim migrant attacks and make it seem like it is credible because of what we are seeing. Because that boy who's attacked on crutches, that video, it looks very similar to another video I saw, which wasn't retweeted. There's a couple videos that come to mind that weren't retweeted by Donald Trump, but are still out there in the ethos that people need to see. There's one that came out of Germany. Actually, two. One shows a little boy on the side of the road crying, and he is scared because he doesn't want to get into a confrontation with one of these migrants. And he's crying, and these people are pretty much saying, look at this little coward. So they start punching him, and they, push him on the ground. And then they leave him alone because he's crying because he curled up into a little ball. Okay, that one, yeah, it's not the worst. But then there's another one out of Germany. This poor little boy is being harassed by a gang of Muslim migrants. He hops a hedge into somebody's backyard, starts banging on the window, banging on the door, saying, hey, help, help, help. This Muslim comes jumping over, runs at him, kicks him, puts him to the ground, starts punching and beating him, and everybody starts laughing. Another video. This one, it's either this one came out of France or Belgium, and it shows a woman having an argument with a Muslim migrant or a Muslim who's lived there for a while. I don't know, but it was a group of Muslims around her. And they're having an argument, and he slaps her. And she doesn't take that because, in the West, women will defend themselves. So she takes her purse, whacks him across the face with it, and then he decks her. He full-on punches her as hard as he can. She goes down, and he starts kicking her with like 2 or 3 other guys. They kick her for a little bit and then walk away, and she's like trying to get up to and compose herself. So this stuff is happening on a very regular basis, and the complete idiocy. I don't know how these people are just ignoring this reality that is continuing to plague their society, and they're willing to turn their vitriolic rage towards somebody who retweets the truth. Do you want your culture to be dismantled? Do you want your countries to go into disarray? If you do not face facts, yes, it is difficult. It is hard sometimes to face reality, because you don't want to get to that nitty-gritty. You don't want to have those difficult conversations because you truly believe that you want the world to be perfectly harmonious. And I get that. I'd want that too. But you can't get there by ignoring the truth. So don't be mad at Donald Trump for retweeting videos. Like, if he retweeted from some other person, some random person who uploaded the videos, there would probably be the same reaction. But, well, maybe a little bit less, because they're trying to now tie in Donald Trump's retweets of this as him being now, this is surely he's showing the signs of being a racist and Islamophobe and anti-Muslim. And that's another thing that pisses me off. How are these videos anti-Muslim when they're showing Muslims of their own volition carrying out these acts? Nobody's manipulating them to do these. Nobody's forcing these Muslims at gunpoint to, like, smash a statue of the Virgin Mary or bust up a church or throw gays off of a high platform and then beat them to death when they land on the ground down there. Nobody's forcing them to do this. They're doing it themselves. And some of these pundits are like, these videos are designed to ferment hatred. These videos weren't designed. They were a spur of the moment. I see an incident going on, I pull out my camera and I videotape it. There was no design in that. There's no influencing in that. It is raw footage of what is happening in the real world, in reality. And if you liberals, you lefties, want to completely cocoon yourself into your false sense of security with your safe spaces and your bubbles, just to ignore these facts because you don't like them, because they sound, oh, nasty, oh no, like we're pointing out at a particular group of people based on their ideology, and we can't single people out because we all need to be inclusive, and that's just anti-Muslim. You're insane. You need to address the situation, because it's starting off with rapes and attacks and beatings here. Soon, you'll actually have people being thrown out of buildings onto the... Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I lied. There's a story that came out of France that a Muslim migrant or a Muslim, I don't know if they were a migrant, but there was a Muslim who was living in an apartment complex, and there was also a Jewish person living there too. They had disagreements, and the Muslim threw the Jewish person off the building and killed them. So we're already starting to have that happen in Europe. So if you don't want to let this run away, if you do not want to see Europe crumble from the inside out, you need to address the situation. You need to do the uncomfortable thing and say what everybody knows, or say what everybody's thinking, and that is that we've got a problem with Islam. They need to do it amongst themselves to reform their religion if they want to live in the West. In the Middle East, they've been fighting for thousands of years, and that's not going to change. But the ones who want to leave the Middle East, they say they're escaping persecution, they're escaping, like, destruction and death. Then how come when they say they're escaping that and they come here, they start doing the exact same thing in Europe or in North America? They try to bring their culture here. And I'm not saying that all aspects of their culture are horrible, but they bring in all the negatives as well, when it's very antithetical to how Western culture, Western society works. And they don't want to integrate. So which is it? Are you escaping persecution, or are you just bringing it with you? Is it like a hard habit to break or something? I don't know. But so you have to have these tough conversations, get out there, talk to people, and you need to not be so vitriolic when somebody who's just concerned about the safety of themselves and their family and the community and their country, who have legitimate concerns, because this is real, this is happening, that you cannot just call them a racist or a homophobe or Islamophobe just to end the conversation. That is very disingenuous to you, everyone else, and is a danger to society. And one last note, I think one of the main reasons why the British outrage was so over the top when it comes to the lefties and the people, the members in Parliament there, was because Donald Trump has 45 million some odd people following him on Twitter. So when he retweeted that, millions of people, I'm not saying all 45 million saw them, but millions and millions of people saw the reality, that saw the truth, that what is happening in the Middle East and Europe. And I guarantee you a lot of those people have never seen that before. To me, that's pretty much bang average. I see it all the time because I look this stuff out and I can find it. Doesn't matter if I find it from a far right wing group, from a neutral newspaper, anywhere. These videos exist outside of the fact of who's trying to push this propaganda. This is reality. This is actually happening. So I think they were more angry that he let the truth out to so many people than who he was actually retweeting and what the content shows. They now are scared because, oh shoot, we've been trying to suppress this for a while, especially the EU, the governments of the EU, and then the individual governments of Germany, France, Great Britain, especially Sweden. They're trying to cover this stuff up, and Donald Trump completely just blows it wide open and shows the world what's happening, and they hate him for it because they have their progressive agendas. They are against their own indigenous population. They are for demographic replacement because that creates a sustainable voting bloc. So everybody has their own agenda. Like the far right group, Britain First, they have their own agenda, but that's an agenda of trying, in their terms, preserving the nation of Britain and not having it crumble into a society filled with violence, filled with destruction. They don't want Britain to become the Middle East. They don't want Britain to be Syria. And that's okay. They can have that opinion. They have that right to their opinion, and they can be very adamant in it because in their eyes it's their country is at stake. But everybody has their own agenda. Everybody can pushes their own propaganda, but you actually have to look past that and see the reality. These are raw footages. Nobody was manipulating these people to do this. Nobody was forcing these people to do this. They were acting out of their own volition, and somebody just happened to pull up a camcorder or a cell phone and record it. So if you don't like the truth, if you don't like reality, well then I guess the future looks pretty bleak. If a lot of people have that majority thought, the future looks really bleak. But anyway, alright guys, that was a video, that was a pretty much the same length video I usually do. I usually try to make these a little bit shorter, but I end up ranting for a little bit. But alright, catch you guys later. Swamp Cleaner Harry. Quick note, VidMe is shutting down, which is very sad. You can't upload anymore, and the last day that they will be active, the actual website will be active, is December 15th. After that, poof, it's gone. And the Kilroy event is, I do believe, pretty much 100% funded, or it's 99%. We are almost there. So this is a certainty. This is going to happen. So anybody who's going, I know a good friend of mine, he's going to be going, and I definitely want to see, like Tim Blake, I want to see you there so we can have a good discussion, because we are completely opposite ends of the spectrum, and it would be really good to have that dialogue. But anyway, alright, this is Swamp Cleaner Harry, and I will check you guys out later. Hope you guys have a great day, and Merry Christmas.